So the other news, and this there's an article from who is it, the New York Times from actually last week, so prior to the inauguration, but talking about how and how tech companies in general are lining up to do this. And as we saw at the inauguration, we had the who's who of tech companies lined up, billionaires row. But this particular article is specifically talking about OpenAI's effort to sort of woo Trump and to craft a new vision of what they're calling AI for America. And it's interesting, especially given the rescindance of Biden's executive order, which was very much focused on sort of hemming the AI sector in. This vision seems to be really putting out this vision of, hey, we don't really need a whole lot of regulation. Here's how we can march forward and take the country with us, sort of thing. And so I was curious what your take on it and if you think it's going to hold sway with the Trump administration.
Yeah, one of the big challenges as I see for OpenAI is simply that Sam Altman, their CEO, is not as ensconced in the Republican Party as other major tech players. So obviously, Elon Musk, with his XAI effort, is very close to the administration. Peter Thiel is with Palantir and through his funding efforts. Larry Ellison of Oracle has long been a Republican fundraiser. So I think of them as having an inherent advantage with this administration in being able to get funding and get AI done. That said, I do think that those voices being a strong financial arm of the Republican Party will help AI to get more funding, which may end up going to other parties as well, such as OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, obviously other American countries that are working deeply in AI. I every time I see Sam Altman's name mentioned for something like this, though, I think of two things. One, that every time he meets a head of state or somebody in the government, they always talk about how impressed they are talking to Sam Altman. Although I don't honestly see it, I will take them at their word that like every prime minister, every president seems to really enjoy talking to him. And the other is that there's a quote from a long time ago from Paul Graham from Y Combinator. And he said once about Sam Altman, this is not a very politically correct quote, that if Sam Altman was put in an island on an island of cannibals, he would be the king of the cannibals in 5 years. Like he has this persuasive way of being able to work with people and always come out on top. And so, regardless of how I feel about it, it seems like there's this real feeling of Sam Altman of always being able to come out on top and be very persuasive at this high level, actually a kind of a skill that seems similar to what Elon Musk does, like talk to really powerful people, really rich people, and convince them that he has a solution that is worth working with. So I think Sam's going to have to work his diplomatic skills really hard to get his share of the money that will be coming out of the U.S. government in the next few years.
What is interesting about this, and I think it's interesting you went straight to sort of the money, because it's not, to me, it's not implicit, or it's not, no, it's certainly not obvious that this vision is calling on funding. This vision is basically saying the US must lead the way and must see this as a national asset. And that I agree. And I guess where I'm struggling is, well, what does that actually translate
Mhm.
into? I mean, other than China, virtually every, and I guess you could make the case for France with Mistral, but for the most part, every major AI player is already a US based player. And so the question is, well, what does this mean? And I think, to me, the big underlying message, I mean, these companies are raising, either already have gobs of money or are raising gobs of money. Um, with the spend through, maybe not enough, but right now funding isn't the big issue, or investment in the space isn't the big issue. So it seemed to me that this vision for America is a call for a clearance of regulation, a steering clear of trust us. This is so important. We need to build it forward, and it sort of harkens to the robber baron era, where there was this sort of clearance of regulation to build the railroad tracks with this idea that it was going to fuel development, and it did, and it also created a whole lot of very wealthy people and corruption along the way. And so the question is, are we going to see the same thing? Is there going to be a balancing act, or how is that all going to play out? And so I think it's, to me, I'm actually quite intrigued. The optimistic part of me, or the optimist part of me, wants to believe that this is actually going to be good for the industry overall. And then there's the pessimist side of me that is very worried about the lack of controls and the lack of regulation. And it's interesting to note that Elon Musk used to be in that camp. He used to be the one advocating for how dangerous AI was, and now he seemed to have completely flipped. So it's a fascinating time just watching all this play out in the intersection.
Sure, when it's your company that stands to benefit, all of a sudden, these rules don't seem to be so much of a challenge, right? I do think that this is so to put it optimistically, I'll say that this is, I think, a real opportunity for AI to improve over the next few years because there will be relatively few guardrails. Whether that's the best thing for us from a societal and from an environmental perspective, well, we'll see. But AI itself has a real chance to advance pretty quickly.